Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. And thanks a lot for joining this happy hours of coaching. I call it as happy hours of coaching because I feel that Friday evening is something where I think the work really doesn't end. In fact, it's a motivation for we as coaches to learn more on a Saturday and Sunday. In fact, I always try to reverse the adage. I think everyone knows, thank God it's Friday, right? Thank God it's Friday. I think everyone knows that adage, right? I think there's a famous restaurant chain also on that. Thank God it's Friday. And then the corollary to that is, oh God, it's Monday, right? So we always say, thank God it's Friday and oh God, it's Monday, because no one likes to go to office to work on a Monday morning. The traffic, the getting up early, of course, because of COVID-19 situation, things have changed a lot. But thank God it's Friday, oh God, it's Monday. I just like to reverse the 2 days. So what I would like to say here is, instead of saying thank God it's Friday, you should say thank God it's Monday and oh God it's Friday. It's as simple as that. If you ask me, this is the best coaching mantra which anyone can have. Thank God it's Monday. Oh God, it's Friday, right? In fact, we should always be motivated to learn something more. We should always be motivated to learn from each other, share knowledge, as we say, right? And I always say that weekend is not for relaxing. Weekend is for enhancing your knowledge. We as coaches have to be constantly upgraded. We have to make sure that we understand the latest trends, we understand the latest happenings in our world, in our industry. And so I am starting this series. We'll be meeting every Friday. I know it may not be possible for all of you to join on a Friday evening, 8 o'clock, but I'm trying to kind of make this as a discipline. I won't call it as a New Year resolution because resolutions are meant to be broken, right? In fact, there was an interesting study which was done that by 15th of this month, which is today, nearly 70% of the people have broken their New Year resolution. So I won't call it as a New Year resolution. But every Friday, I'm going to have a 1 hour session like this on a topic similar to this, where we will learn from each other, where we'll try to understand from each other what exactly are the happenings in the coaching world around us. And if any one of you would like to also volunteer for this session, I would be more than happy. You can come back to me later on and you can volunteer, and we can have these sessions planned even from you also, right? If obviously we'll need a 2 weeks lead time in order to have these sessions. All right. So moving ahead, the topic which I'm going to talk about today is coaching towards unconscious competence. Now, this is a very interesting topic. I came across this through some standard knowledge, through some theoretical knowledge, and I've also seen this happening in real life. For example, I always wonder how come Australian team consistently World Cup after World Cup they keep on winning the titles, right? I mean, what makes this team so different from the other cricket teams, right? Another example, you would have seen that even in your organization, there's one individual or an associate who consistently is a A plus grader. He or she consistently gets a good grade in the appraisal system. And definitely there is something more to that person, right? There's something more in the personality. There's something more in the way he or she does things, right? As the famous quote says, right? Winners don't do different things. They do things in a different manner. So something like this, do we really have that potential, or is it something, a skill which is a god given skill and which only few individuals have it? So I thought that I will talk about this, what is unconscious competence all about, why it is so important for all of us as coaches to realize this in our team members. And first of all, is it something, a skill which can be acquired, or is it something more like a common sense? I think that's the question which I always had. Like the biggest compliment which was given to an Australian cricket team was that you put this team in more trouble, they will come out of it. They will come out of it. Not only like that, they will come out of it with flying colors. So the more you try to apply pressure on that team, you know what? They actually exceed their old performance. They actually beat records when they are put in a trouble, or when they are put against the wall, when they're pushed against the wall. So what makes this team, or what makes these individuals so different from the other individuals? That is what, and one thing what I have found is they do things as if it's a habit. You don't have to take special effort. They do it as if it's I mean, even when they hit a six, it's like as if it's a kind of a normal thing. Another example can be Virendra Sehwag. To triple centuries. The only Indian batsman to have two triple centuries, right? Two 300. Sorry, not triple century. That way, triple century. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, how does he do those things again and again, repeatedly? And why can't our team members, or why we as coaches can't bring about that culture of unconscious competence? So let me start with a story. By the way, those of you who don't know me, I'm Ashutosh Bhatodekar, an enterprise agile coach, a trainer, and a design thinker. These are my coordinates. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, though not much active on Twitter. And this is my Gmail ID. You can reach out to me later also after this program gets over. And let me start with a very interesting story about this person. Uh, Anyone knows this person? Who is this? I mean, we all know celebrities, we all know film stars, Bollywood politicians, Hollywood, right? Sportsmen. But he's also a sportsman. He's also a sportsman, and there's a very interesting story behind this person. I mean, it's about Olympics shooting, as you can see. He's an Olympic shooter. And you know what? He's the Olympian who got two consecutive gold medals. He was the first shooter to win two consecutive gold medals in the Olympic Games. And you know what? That's not the reason why I'm mentioning it here. He was an army man. So he was preparing for the 1936 Olympic Games. 1940 Olympic Games is what he was preparing for, not 1936, 1940 Olympic Games. He was preparing. He was practicing for 1940 Olympic Games. And during army trials, there was a grenade which accidentally exploded, and he lost his shooting hand. He lost his right hand, which was used for shooting, and his entire dreams came crashing. His entire dreams came crashing. And on top of it, what happened was 1940 Olympic Games got cancelled because of World War II. Those of you who are aware about the historical context about Olympic Games, that was the time when there was a World War II, and 1940 Olympic Games got cancelled. So in 1940, you know what? He visited Hungarian shooting championship. He's from Hungary. He was from Hungary. He visited the national championship which were being conducted. And you know what? His colleagues came to him and said, "Oh, we are very happy that you have come here to motivate us. We understand that you have lost your right hand, but we are very happy that you have come here to motivate us." You know what he said? He said, "I have not come here to motivate you. I have come here to compete with you." And he did shooting with his left hand, and he won the Hungarian national championship. 1940, 41, 42, he won the Hungarian national championship. Unfortunately, even the 1944 Olympic Games got cancelled because of continuation of World War II. He didn't lose hope. He didn't lose heart. He went in for 1948 Olympic Games. He won gold medal. He repeated the feat in 1952 Olympic Games. So what I'm trying to tell is sometimes your best of the best resources are not available with you. Now, in this case, this person has lost his right hand. He had to adapt himself to the situation. He had to reinvent himself, and he had to learn shooting with the left hand. And not only learn shooting with his left hand, but also win the medal, right? So what I'm trying to tell here is, we always say, right, the test environment is not available, or you know what, I didn't get access to the environment, but there's always a way out. There's always a workaround. There's always a way out. The sky isn't the limit. Your belief system is what your limit is all about, right? So this is the example with which I wanted to start this conversation about unconscious competence. How do we reach that zone of unconscious competence? You don't even know that you have to take any special efforts, right? You would have heard about a lot of world thinkers, a lot of coaches. I remember a quote by a very famous prime minister of ours, Indira Gandhi. Again, not bringing any political perspective here, but just that quote is very beautiful. You know, she used to work for 18 to 20 hours a day as a prime minister. And once a reporter asked her that, do you never get tired? I mean, how come you work so much, 18 hours, 20 hours a day? She said that change of work is a relaxation for me. So I might be signing files in 1 hour. The second hour, I don't sign files. I go to a different room and I do some other work, but I work for the nation. So again, that's what we say, right? It's not what your belief system is, right? It's the sky isn't the limit, as they say. Your belief system is what the limit is, how you take it forward, right? You might be having the challenges. You might not get the resources what are required for your project. You might have to not get the test server available, but then you have always workarounds. We as coaches have to be innovative. We as leaders have to be innovative in our approach, and how quickly can we adapt. I heard a lot of things when COVID-19 struck us, right? As if it's an end of the world. No, it's not an end of the world. You have to adapt yourself. It's a challenge which has been thrown to us, and we have to adapt to that particular challenge. All right. Moving ahead, another sportsman, Carl Lewis, a very famous quote: if you don't have confidence in yourself, you'll always find an excuse not to win. Right? Your belief system, that actually plays a very, very vital role. And life is all about timing. Again, two times Olympian gold medal, also a member of the champion US relay team. Right? If you don't have the confidence, you'll always find an excuse, or you'll always find a way not to win or not to achieve any goal. Right? So definitely this is something which is what actually makes or cuts you from the rest of the leaders out there. Okay, now there was a very interesting survey which was done, and this was done by a very famous HR agency. How much of our employees are engaged at our workplace? And one mistake which we all think is that engagement means you give a good salary, hefty bonus, a good variable pay, people are engaged. No, money is not a motivation for team members. Believe me, money is, I'm sure everyone knows this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Moment you are in the industry for 10 to 12 years, money is no longer a motivation, right? What you need is a self-esteem. You need is a self-actualization. No point in just going there and filling in timesheet and coming back home at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whatever it is, right? Believe me, there are leaders who have left their workplace and are doing something creative at a different place. They've completely changed their careers. They have moved from, let us say, software, or from management into, let's say, farming, or into stockbroking for that matter. So money is not the motivation beyond a certain point in time. You know what? These results were very, very startling results which came out. How many percentage of our employees are engaged at our workplace? So you can, once you see the number, you will be surprised. Only 15% of the employees are engaged. Take any IT services company in India, it has got minimum 100,000 employees, the top 5. So this survey is telling that out of 100,000 employees in this IT services company, only 15,000 employees are engaged. So this organization is spending salary on 85% of the employees who don't even feel motivated to open their laptop and check email. Forget about anything else. Who don't feel motivated to open their laptop and check what the email says. They're just filling in timesheet for the sake of doing it, right? This is from Gallup. This survey was done by Gallup, and it's a very dangerous situation, right? 85% of the employees in a company are not engaged. So just try to look around you, in your teams, in your business units, in your lines of business. Let's take that your line of business is 200 plus associates who are working. 85% of them are not engaged at all. They're just doing the job for the sake of doing it, or because they're getting a salary on 31st, or because they have an EMI, they have a loan which they have to make sure that they make sure that that loan is closed off quickly, and that's the reason why they're doing job. And one of the reasons why this is happening is also because the wrong set of candidates get hired up. We talk about Java skills. We talk about identifying the logical skills of the person when we are hiring an interview. We don't really test what is the emotional intelligence of the associate. Whether the associate is a team player, whether the associate is more on the individual contributor side, our interview mechanisms or our interview evaluation systems, they don't unfortunately test these things when we are hiring a candidate, which is very, very important. Employee engagement, that completely gets missed in any of our interviews, what we are doing. So that's the reason why we end up in such a high number that only 15% of the employees are engaged. And imagine if your attrition of 10% is hitting this lot the most, imagine what can happen to your organization. The most engaged people, if they feel that, okay, my growth is not here because I'm ending up doing the work for rest 85% of the people, they are not going to stay with your organization, right? They're going to leave the organization quickly, right? So imagine how much it will impact, your organization's attrition score. If the attrition is hitting this particular block, your entire, I would say, creativity, innovation from an organization perspective will go in for a toss, right? So One very interesting book which has been written by Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right? We have to quickly act. Now, when we are working in organizations, we are used to this classic pyramid structure, right? The hierarchical pyramid structure. Today, when we talk about leadership, leadership is not just sitting in a cabin, sitting at the top, sitting in a cabin with all the regular perks and all. Leadership is sitting at the center of your teams. So if you look at this, this is how the leadership model is changing from a, I would say, a top-down pyramid organization structure to what we call as a circle of influence. Leadership is all about you being the leader, influencing these circles, or you being the leader, influencing these teams, which we know are what we call as the cross-functional, self-managed, self-organized team. So it's no longer a culture of command and control. Gone are the days of your command and control culture. What leadership today is more about coaching. It's more about mentoring. It's more about guiding. So our team members, our associates are looking for leaders who can inspire them. See, you might give them an order. You might tell them that, okay, do it this way. Or you might tell them that, okay, I'm telling you this, so do it this way. Or because I've been in the industry for 20 years, you have to follow me. They will listen to you once. They will listen to you twice. But believe me, third time, they are not going to listen to you. They'll say that there are better ways. Why don't you give us empowerment? Why is the psychological safety missing in my particular team? So slowly we are moving away from a command and control culture to what we call as a coaching culture or a culture of influence. Tomorrow's leaders would be the leaders who will influence, not the leaders who will sit on the top. I remember my experience when I joined an agile coaching transformation. The first day, this person called me, the person who had hired me. And you know what he said? This is your cabin. You know what? I refused that cabin. I said, no, I can't sit in a cabin. As a coach, I cannot sit in a cabin. He said, no, you need to do something confidential. I said, for a coach, there's nothing confidential. Everything is open. Everything is transparent. Even I don't like the word opaque for a coach. Everything has to be put forward in front of the teams. No, you will be working on some confidential report. I said, there's nothing confidential. The first important thing is all reports are going to be exposed from today itself. The day my coaching engagement starts, all the reports are going to be exposed. So whether it is defect density, whether it is velocity of the team, whether it is technical depth, or for that matter, business value realized, unrealized, all these reports are going to be would be exposed to everyone in the organization from day one. We are not working with NASA, right? We are not working with a mission critical application to develop a nuclear bomb or a cryogenic engine, right? So why worry about the safety issue, right? And this person was really surprised that here people are craving for a cabin, and they were all saying that no, this new person has actually hijacked our cabin, or he has actually stolen our cabin. And here is a coach who comes in and says, you know what, he doesn't need a cabin. He will sit with a team member. And you know what, they were surprised even the position which I picked up. It was in a team of a mix of, I would say, juniors and the middle level people between freshers to, let us say, 8 to 10 years of experiences, where I actually picked up my seat. I said, I want to hear what's happening at the ground level. At the shop floor, what's happening. For we as coaches, our shop floor is the place where our code is being developed, where our code is being tested. If you don't know what's happening at your shop floor, you are never going to understand the problems. And most importantly, you are never going to empathize with your team, that why a particular anti-pattern or an anti-agile pattern is emerging out of your team, right? So, I mean, this person was really surprised, and he asked me twice or thrice, are you sure? Then he said, okay, you think after one day and let me know. I said, no, I'm going to write you a mail immediately that this is my seat, and please allocate this seat to me. You can give the cabin to anyone else, right? I mean, that's the kind of leadership what we have to display. Not that I did something great, but I'm just trying to tell you that why it is important for we as coaches to be at the shop floor, where our code is getting manufactured, where our code is getting tested, where our code is getting deployed. You hear a lot of conversations. Believe me, when you are sitting in this place, you hear a lot of conversations, right? The flip side of it is also that people consider you as a cop, and they think that a cop is actually there monitoring you. So that assurance and that confidence is what you need to give it to them, that you are not there as a cop. Whatever information you hear or overhear, that is something which will not be used against them, but it will be used only for improving the, I would say, the way the work is being happening, right? So we have to move from a pyramid of a command to a circle of influence. So it's not just a geometric shape change. between this geometric shape change, there's a big culture, there's a big mindset change which you have to bring into your leadership, right? And which is where you have to, first of all, you have to do both a top down and a bottom up approach. And when I say top down and a bottom up approach, I'm talking about a classic hierarchical situation or a classic hierarchical based organization. And slowly you have to crush that pyramid. I always say that you have to crush that pyramid and you have to make it into a circle where the leader is at the center, where the leader is at the one place where everyone can approach. Any person has that psychological safety to approach that person. And a leader can also move around that entire circle of influence, what we call it. All right. So what is this all about, right? Unconscious competence all about. As a coach, as a transformation agent, as a change agent, you always need to ensure that whatever levels of coaching you're doing, whether you're doing it for team, whether you're doing it for that frozen middle layer. By the way, I love to call this middle layer as the frozen middle layer. And this term I have picked up from one of my transformation engagement. Why I call it as the frozen middle layer is because invariably I have found, again, it's my experience, feel free to differ with this. This is the layer which is like that frozen compartment of your refrigerator, right? They actually don't allow the information to flow from bottom to top and top to bottom. They will try to filter out that information, and they are very, very rigid. And one reason why this layer is rigid is also because moment they hear something like an agile transformation happening or our organization moving from a traditional way of working into an agile way of working, what they fear is that, you know what, my job is redundant now. Let me start looking out for a new job, or let me start giving interviews. This is what they feel. And that's why many times when you as the coach also go and start interacting with this layer, you will find that the information is not forthcoming, right? You have to do multiple probings. You as a coach, you have to ask the question in 2 or 3 different ways. Then you have to build that rapport with this layer, and then they slowly start opening up. So I call it as a frozen middle layer. And whether it's the frozen middle layer or the top executive leadership team or your team members, developers, QAs, architects, DevOps, technical architects, etc., you have to move them from a zone of unconscious incompetence to what we call as the zone of unconscious competence. This is a very famous model developed by Martin Broadwell, where he talks about the 4 layers of this competency and how we move from, again, if you look at this model, you're still in an unconscious state only. But from an incompetent state, you have moved into or you have transformed into a competent state, right? So what is this 4-layer model all about? Layer 1 talks about the zone of unconscious incompetence. I don't even know that I know a practice which is done in a wrong way, or I don't even know that things are happening in a wrong way. I can give my example again, not from the work again, from Northern work. When I started learning driving, I mean, I went and did my learner's test. I mean, learner's test was very easy in those days. You did not have to drive a car to get a learner's license. I don't know how it is today, but in those days, around 20 years back, when I went in for a driving, for a learner's license, all they asked me was for an age proof. They asked me for a medical fitness certification. The cop there asked me some few of the road signs, what it means, what a railway crossing means, what is a no parking zone, etc. And the license was issued. But then getting a learning license is not enough, right? You need a permanent license. And most importantly, the purpose was to drive a car. The purpose was to drive a car, right? So I went in for a driving institute, and this person asked me to sit in front of the steering wheel, the instructor. And he was sitting next to me, and he had a parallel set of controls, what a driving school has. So if there's a problem, he can immediately apply the brakes, or he can immediately change the gears with the help of a clutch mechanism. So there's a dual control in such cars. I'm sure many of you know this, but I'm just giving this details because in case anyone doesn't know this, I'm trying to set the context. And you know what? First day, I did not even know the ABC of car: accelerator, brake, clutch. I accidentally applied a brake when I should have put on the pedal on the accelerator. And reverse also I was going to do. I was going to apply, I thought that this is a brake. And you know what? I accelerated the car. And this person stopped me. He said, next 5 days, you are not going to sit in the driver's seat. You sit at the back. Let the other person who enrolled along with me, he or she take up the driver's seat. And you are only going to observe that person. And most importantly, observe the feet movement sitting at the back. So I was in the zone of unconscious incompetence. I did not even knew something I was doing it in a wrong. And invariably, when you do that, you end up taking a wrong decision or a wrong intuition. After 3-4 days, I started realizing, oh my God, what that ABC is all about. How should I control with my hand and floor gears also? What is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? What does R mean? I started observing the people, and then I realized that, you know what? I lack this skill at all. After 5-6 days, the instructor then brought me again back in the driver's seat, and he said that you are going to only drive for 200 meters daily, not more than that. So I started applying my right set of analysis. I started driving, and I learned how to do it, but I still needed a lot of practice. I could only drive the car. Even when he said 200 meters, I could only drive for 50 meters, 60 meters the second day, 100 meters, 120 meters, 150 meters. But I realized that, okay, slowly I started realizing how I should drive the car. 15 days down the line, you know what? I started driving the car, though albeit at a slow speed. I could drive it, let's say at 30, 35 kilometers per hour, but I could comfortably drive the car. I also learned how to do the reverse, how to have the reverse shift mechanism of the gear, how to do parallel parking, how to park, and once it is parked, how do I get it back? As I said, reverse, and even how to actually do the hand clutch brake mechanism on a slope. So I became a little I would say, and not an expert, but I became trained in car driving. And then I went and got a license. Today, if you ask me, at least I can claim this from car driving. Okay, I'm not claiming it from agile coaching. I have reached that zone of unconscious competence, which means if God forbid there's an emergency at my house at 1 o'clock in the night, and I have to take some family members to a doctor or to an hospital, even if someone wakes me at 1 o'clock in the night and asks me that, okay, please take out the car, there's an emergency, or my friend needs some help, I know that subconsciously I can apply the gear brake. I don't have to look at the gear, even though it is pitch dark. So I have learned how to do it so that it has become a habit. I know from my car also. I know that, okay, how do I make it a gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, gear 4, etc. Okay. So this is how we go from a zone of unconscious incompetence to the zone of unconscious competence. Now, you should know that where your team lies. There are different ways of finding it out. It could be through maturity assessments. It could be through one-on-one discussions. It could be through the conversations, observations and conversations. And that's why you need to sit closer to the team. If you're sitting in a cabin, you won't be able to observe things, right? Observation and conversation. Conversation is when you speak, but observation also, you can see a lot of things happening around. Just open your eyes and ears and you will hear and see a lot of interesting things happening around in your teams, right? So you need to be aware where your team is today. And then you need to move them into a zone of unconscious competence. That's the role of a coach. That's what I say, that this is the nirvana moment of coaching. When your team actually does this as an habit. Success is a habit for them. They don't have to take special efforts for doing things successfully, right? It's called as the zone of unconscious competence. I always believe that the aha moment of coaching for a coach is when I learn something from my coachee. I don't have to teach my coachee something, but I learn something from my coachee. The restate of the Shuhari model is, I would say, the aha moment of coaching. Those of you would have seen this Hindi movie Chak De, the last scene of Chak De movie, where Shah Rukh Khan says, not 70 minutes, I'm not talking 70 minutes, okay? But there's something very important in that dialogue. If you have not listened to that dialogue, please have a look at that specific dialogue again. I will speak in Hindi and then translate in English. He says that, आज मैं तुम्हें हॉकी नहीं सिखाऊंगा, आज तुम लोग मुझे हॉकी सिखाओगे. I'll translate it in English. So Shah Rukh Khan is shown as the coach of the hockey team, and he says to his students or to his players, today I'm not going to coach you how to play hockey. Today, in these 70 minutes, you're going to teach me how to play hockey, or how a good game of hockey is played. Please hear this dialogue if you have not heard this, or if you have forgotten this dialogue. Okay, that's the aha moment of coaching. That's when the coach realizes that I'm no longer needed in this team. My team has reached the zone of unconscious competence, which means they don't really need my guidance. They don't really need my mentorship. I have achieved, I have made sure that I have made my team move from here to here. This is the success criteria. In fact, many times you would be getting this question in an agile coaching interview, I'm pretty sure. How do you think that your coaching engagement was successful? How do you think that as a coach you were successful or not successful? Or what was the yardstick Did you plan something? And we invariably go and talk about matrix. No, it's not about matrix only. It's also about some qualitative parameters. It's also about what you as a coach are learning from your team. Many of us miss that. We say that, okay, I taught my team how to conduct a daily stand-up meeting. I taught my team how a retrospective action items have to be resolved. No, that's not the aha moment of coaching. Believe me, friends. The aha moment of coaching is when I also learned out something out of that transformation. I picked up some skills and I myself became a better individual than what I entered into this coaching engagement. So that's the aha moment of coaching, what I wanted to talk about. Now, of course, as is the case with any other concept, or as is the case with any other idea, there's always a framework which runs after us, right? Either you run after the framework or the framework runs after you. I'm personally not a big fan of frameworks. Okay, just a kind of a caveat or a disclaimer here. Before I talk what this slide is, I personally believe that framework is something which is more like a template. Over a period of time, we as coaches should come out with our own unique identity, our own unique branding, our own unique framework, if I were to put it. So I'm not a big fan of frameworks, if you ask me personally. But then I thought that I'll just quickly share this framework. What is this framework for high performing team? The framework for high performing team is by this person, Bhavani, Satar Bhavani. He uses a framework called as a SCORE framework, where SCORE is an acronym. S is for strategy, C is for clarity in roles and responsibilities, O is for openness or open communication, R is for rapid response to changes, and E is effective leadership. I think all these terms are pretty self-explanatory. All of us have attended some form or the other certification classes, I'm pretty sure. So I think everyone is aware about these frameworks. I always believe that knowledge is something which you can get easily from Google. Siri is there, Mrs. Siri is there, Mrs. Alexa is there, who are there to help us to get the knowledge. But events like this, like for example, this happy hour of coaching, or any conference you attend, or any training program you attend, why we should spend money, right? This is a question which I'm always asked, that if knowledge is available with Mrs. Siri, if Mrs. Alexa is my favorite, who gives me knowledge when I speak or converse with her, why should I go in conferences, or why should I go for trainings, or why should I go for, why should I attend webinars? I always believe the fun element is something what you can never learn through Siri and Alexa. For that, you need conferences. For that, you need coaching classes. For that, you need mentorship and guidance. I always believe that, right? Okay, coming back to the SCORE framework. So it's about having a strategy in place. It's having about a clarity in roles and responsibilities. It's having about openness in your communication, transparency and openness, and a rapid and an adaptive response to change. Think out of the box, think creatively, apply design thinking concepts. And what ties all of this SCOR is the E part of it, which helps you score in your transformation, which is how effective is your leadership all about. And when I say leadership, it's not against senior management, okay? Unfortunately, we have equated leadership with CEO. Leadership equals to MD. No. When I say leadership, or when I talk about leadership, it's about that circle of influence, which I talked about a couple of slides back. That how as leaders, we actually are in that centerpiece. We are in that leadership piece where we influence and where we get influenced by other people in our teams, right? So that's what we call it as the SCORE model. And obviously, again, it's not about pyramid again. It's what we need to understand is that these are the scales of a high performance agile team, right? I always believe that a team is not just a collection of individuals. A collection of individuals is not team. That definition is long passe, if I were to now say. Like I remember when I did my first leadership training, they used to tell me that a team is a collection of individuals, a team is a collection of people. No, it is not even a group, a work group. So there's a fundamental difference between coordination and collaboration. Your team is a high performing team when it is collaborative in nature. And there's a fundamental difference, as I said, between collaboration and coordination. Coordination doesn't mean that your team will necessarily be a high performance team. For your team to be a high performance team, it has to be a collaborative team. What is a collaborative team? Where we actually eliminate the problem. We not only solve the problem, but we eliminate the problem. We eliminate the problem so that the problem does not recur again, right? So the main highlight of a high performing team is a team which is collaborative in nature, which doesn't have any excuses, a team which will proactively pick up the work. So let's say I'm sick for 3 minutes, someone will pick up my task. We will not give an excuse that, you know what, Ashutosh was ill, so our productivity was down, so we could not do this user story or this particular epic. We had to put it on hold because no one else was available who could work on it, right? So as a coach, you have to build a culture of collaboration. You have to build a culture of, I would say, a collaborative team. So a team is a collection of individuals. That definition is long gone. Just to put you mathematically, what is the difference between coordination and collaboration? 1 + 1 = 2. I think everyone knows this, but that is coordination in this era. What is collaboration? 1 + 1 greater than 2 is collaboration. 1 + 1 greater than 2 is what we call as collaboration, what we need to understand, right? So there's a fundamental difference between collaboration and coordination, what we need to understand. All right, let's play a small game. So let's have some fun exercise here. And you know what? I'm going to give you a small exercise. Okay, I'm going to give you a small exercise. Don't worry, it will be an anonymous exercise. Okay, just look at these 6 words. Just look at these 6 words. I hope the 6 words are visible to everyone. What you see on the screen: obedience, expertise, creativity, passion, initiative, and diligence. Can you see the 6 words? Yes. Okay. So what I would like you to do is, let's say you are hiring team members in your team. Let's say you are hiring team members in your team. You need to rank these 6 skills in the order of priority from 1 to 6. 1 being the highest priority, 6 being the lowest priority. So if I'm looking for a candidate, let's say I'm looking for a candidate and I get a resume of a person, say Amitabh Bachchan. Mr. Bachchan has applied to my company. And I'm evaluating Mr. Bachchan for these skills: obedience, expertise, creativity, passion, initiative, diligence. Which is the most important skill I will look? That will be number 1. And the least important skill will be number 6. Is the exercise clear to everyone? I hope the exercise is clear to everyone. You have to rank all the skills from a scale of 1 to 6. Okay, let's say it is Mrs. Bachchan, or let's say it is Mrs. Priyanka Chopra who's going to join your team. What are the top 6 skills in the order of priority and in the order what you think from 1 to 6? So I'm giving you a link. I'm giving you a link. You need to connect on that link and you need to submit your responses there. You need to submit your responses on the link. I have pasted the link in the chat box. I hope you can see the link in the chat box, everyone. Please go on that link, and remember the response is anonymous, so don't worry. This data will be immediately trashed after this session. We don't keep any data, so don't worry about that. And please submit the response. What, according to you, are the skills required in the order of priority for a team member whom you are hiring in your team? Let me know once done. Okay, there are a few people who have done it. Great. Nice to see you done. And you would have got the answers also, right? Those of you would have done. I'm sure you would have seen the answers. Prabhu Sachin, did you see the answers? I mean, you would have got the answers, right? Yeah, okay. No worries. That's okay. So let's wait for others to also complete. Looking at it now, okay. Not to worry. Yeah. Okay. So how about others? If I hope you are doing the, I mean, it's a small exercise. I got 5 responses so far. Okay, great. As I said, your name was not captured anywhere, so don't worry. Your name was not captured anywhere. Okay. Yeah, we have just 5 people who have done it. How about others? If you can just complete it and let us know. Uh, Others, have you done it? Let me know once you have done it. Okay, you are unable to fill in the link. I don't know because others were able to submit it. I'm not sure why you were not able to submit it. Okay, so just keep the list with you. That's okay if you're not able to submit it. Yeah, okay. I don't know. Some people are unable to submit it. I don't know what is the reason. But you can keep the list with you, not a problem. If you're unable to submit, just keep the list with you. That should be okay. I got 6 responses so far. Okay, I've got 6 responses. Okay, so before I reveal the answer, let me ask a question. How many of you feel that AI or robotics is going to snatch jobs from us? How many of you feel that AI or robotics is going to snatch jobs from us? Okay, I've got a no one. How about others? I mean, we always hear, right? Automation has led to job losses. Automation has led to retrenchment. Automation has led to no need of a human being for doing these things. So the reason why I asked this question is this was a very interesting survey which was done. This was a very interesting survey which was done, and you know what they found out was that uh, if you look at these 3 skills, this is the correct order. The first thing you should look in any individual is passion, whether that individual is passionate towards work or not, right? The second thing is creativity, how creative or innovative the person is. The third thing is the person taking initiative. This is from a famous book by Gary Hamel, which is What Matters Now. The survey has been picked up from this what is called as Gary Hamel, what is called as what it says, what matters now, right? Now, if you have these 3 skills in an employee, these skills are irreplaceable, which means no automation, no AI, no robotics framework, no RPA can snatch these skills. There is no robo which can go ahead and snatch these skills from a human being. But the bottom skills like expertise, I'm a C++ programmer, Java++ programmer, diligence, I'm very, very hardworking, and I'm obedient. These skills are something which can be easily subcontracted. You don't, I mean, a company will not think twice before releasing an associate if he or she has got only these 3 skills, but does not have a passion, does not have a creativity, or does not show an initiative. The bottom 3 skills in that pyramid are something which can be easily outsourced. So if the company wants to save cost, they might say that, okay, let's outsource, let's not hire an employee. Let's actually transition this work to a subcontracting company. But passion, creativity, and initiative is something which cannot be really transferred, which cannot be really shared across with others, right? This is something which is unique to you. I always say that there are 2 things which robots cannot snatch from a human being. One is intelligence. And what is the second thing? Any guesses? A robo cannot snatch intelligence from a human being. And what is the second thing which a robo cannot snatch from a human being, or any RPA cannot snatch? It is nothing but stupidity. Believe me, there have been a lot of innovative products which have come up, which the idea of which was thought very, very stupid. So innovation, I mean, intelligence innovation is one thing, and stupidity is another thing, which no robo or no automation framework or no RPA framework can snatch away from us, right? So that was what I wanted to cover. I mean, this a small exercise which tells you that what are the skills you should be looking for in your employees. Do read this book. It's a very interesting book by Gary Hamel on what matters now, how the skill landscape has completely changed from the earlier century to this current century. What is important for I mean, for a leader to look into his or her employees. What are the vital skills which are required? And this exercise was also borrowed from this concept which was given in What Matters Now, right? So I would end up this with a last quote which says, the mediocre coach will always tell something. Do this because I'm telling. A good coach will explain what needs to be done. A great coach will demonstrate. But the icing on the cake is something which is coming up next. The best coach is the one who's an inspirational model, or the best coach is a person who's a role model for the team, right? So with this, I will just take a pause here, and I will open up the floor for any questions anyone has. So let me unmute you all, and just give me a second and I'll be unmuting you. I also wanted to let you know that we also have an Agile Coaching Masterclass program coming up, where we have a lot of such interesting concepts. It's a 2-day coaching program which we have. And the next batch is on 30th and 31st of January, which is Saturday, Sunday after Republic Day. So if anyone is interested, please enroll for that program. I'll share the link. We are giving a discount of 25% for next 2 days on that. This is a code for that. And please, if you're interested, you can register for this Agile Coaching Masterclass program. And I'm sure it will be helpful for you to learn more such concepts. It's a full fun day, fun activity, as I said. It's a completely gamified program. In fact, we keep very less of theory and more of practical exercises like the one which you solved just now. I've just shared the link of that program to you and a discount code. And let me now open up the floor for questions. So I have unmuted you all. So if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and please feel free to ask any questions. You can unmute yourself if you have any questions. I think I'm not, are you speaking? Anyone speaking? I'm not sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Albert, I can hear you now. Yeah, hi Albert, how are you?
Okay, good. How are you?
Yeah, doing good, sir.
Since you asked, is anybody speaking? I just tested it.
Okay. Not a worry, not a worry. That's okay.
So I just have one question, Ashutosh. So I think there was a slide about this unconscious incompetence to conscious competence, right? So I think there are many cases where I think we find some challenges within the team. So not sure. I mean, even if we say that it's possible, how easy it's on a realistical basis, right? So just to understand your thought on that.
Okay, so do you watch cricket, Augustine?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know Ricky Ponting's score in the first 4 test matches? Are you aware?
No,
just Google it. Just Google it, okay? In fact, after first 4 test matches, there was a thought that he should be permanently dropped. In fact, it was in single digits, and there were 2 zeros in that first 4 test matches. And the same was the situation with with the One Day International. So, I mean, the coach believed in this person. See, as a coach, first of all, we need to understand what are the limitations of our coaches. And we need to ensure that as a coach, are we utilizing our coach, or are we bringing our coaches to their maximum potential? We realize the fact that not everyone can be, let's say, an Australian team. Yes, I do realize that fact. But at least win 1 World Cup in, let's say, 8 years, right? At least win 1 World Cup in a decade when there are 3 World Cups which are happening, or 2 World Cups, whatever they happen, right? So at least we should know the potential of our team. That, okay, it's not that all your agile teams are going to be in this zone, in unconscious competence. There could be still some teams who are here, which is okay. But as a coach, have you made an effort? Have you done that due diligence to identify till what level is the best which this person can be coached? I don't know if I've answered your question, Augustine, but that requires a lot of investment in terms of time, investment in terms of analyzing the person, also trying to understand the expectations of the coachee and trying to have a kind of a roadmap to be worked.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Thanks, Ashutosh.
So Augustine, I don't think we are connected on LinkedIn. Maybe we can connect on LinkedIn if you're interested.
Yep. That'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, I think people are waiting for the Friday to begin in, looks like. Any comments or feedback on the session anyone would like to share? I mean, good, bad, ugly, anything, I'm fine. Or rather, I should put ugly, bad, good. Any quick comments? Okay. Okay, anyone, and you can connect with me offline also. As I said, I'll be more than happy to talk with you on this. And you can connect with me offline. We can have a conversation around this. I'm once again pinging the YouTube channel link in case anyone wants to connect on that. I mean, even this video would get uploaded on YouTube after maybe tomorrow or sometime. And feel free to watch the other videos which are there on the YouTube channel. And please do have your comments on this. If you're connected with me on LinkedIn, I have also written a couple of articles on LinkedIn. Do read them and give your critical feedback on them. And as I said, it need not have to be good. You can obviously disagree. We all talk about empowerment. We talk about psychological safety. So this is something which I would strongly recommend all of you to have a look at the articles and have a look at, I would say, the links which I've shared here. And I think, I mean, I would sincerely request you, all of you, in case you're interested in the Agile Coaching Masterclass, do reach out to me. As I said, there's a 25% discount which is going on right now. I think there's a wrong link which has got published there. So I'll just share the correct link there so that you get the correct link in case you can see the program content there. As I said, this was just a small version of what we do in that class. There are more things what we do in that class. And as I said, it's a completely gamification experience. It's a completely experience which helps you actually go into that coaching transformation journey. That's what I would say. So the link, the correct link is what I will publish it here shortly. And yeah, this is the correct link where you can go and connect and find out about the Agile Coaching Masterclass program. And the discount code is DIC25. Okay, but before that, any last questions before we finally wrap up? As I said, we'll be having this session regularly on Friday, 45 minutes to 1 hour. And also the speakers would be different. So you won't find every time only me talking. There could be a conversation. We're trying to have a kind of a coffee chat concept also, rather than having a presentation based. So a lot of interesting things being planned on the happy hours of coaching. So in case you liked it, really thanks. And I do see some of you have written in the chat. So really appreciate your feedback. And so thanks a lot. So if there are no further questions, I'll give back the time back to you. And have a great weekend ahead, and happy learning and happy coaching experience. Thank you.